In today's Leeds news, under-21s into a final, Farke under real pressure, German international on Leeds shortlist, and Leeds publish financial results. Morning folks, Jay here at The View for Wednesday morning, the 2nd of April with your Leeds United news. There's a little bit of stuff to get stuck into. The financial results are out, so that's going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on, so we'll get some detail to you on that. There's going to be several polls put out today on the community tab just to gauge the feeling on a couple of different topics around the fan base. I just want to get a little bit of a sample before we do the podcast later on this week. There will be the pod tomorrow night, Thursday night, as well as a preview on Friday as well for the game against Luton on Saturday, and we will have to watch along over on Big Up. But for today, we'll crack on with the news, and we'll start with some good news, and maybe overdue good news for a little bit, and this relates to Leeds United's under-21s, and Leeds under-21s last night booked their place in the National League Cup final with a 2-1 win against Altrincham FC. Goals from Diego Monteiro and Josh McDonald in that game were enough to get Leeds over the line and book their place in that final. Monteiro's goal came after a well-taken free kick, rebounded off the post and was tapped in the back post by Monteiro. McDonald's goal was a little bit more exciting. A long ball forward, McDonald ran onto it, came into the box and beat three players before rolling the ball into the corner to secure the win. A statement from Leeds United this morning said that Leeds will play Steve Morrison's Sutton United in the final of that competition, with a date and a venue to be confirmed in due course. But just a big well done to Scott Gardner, Michael Pujak and all of the players in getting to that final, and fingers crossed they can get a win this year after getting most of this squad to the final of the FAU Cup last year against Manchester City. Let's move on and talk about the chunkier story of the day, and there's just two of these really, and one is about Daniel Farke being under some serious pressure behind the scenes at Elland Road, and Daniel Farke is said, as I said, to be under real pressure at Leeds, and promotion to the Premier League may not be enough to save his job, even if they get there, if reports today are to be believed. Leeds' current form bears very close resemblance to the form at this point last season as well, when Leeds' form fell off a cliff and Leeds dropped into the playoffs, and we know how that story finished. In the last 5 league games, Leeds have picked up 1 win, 3 draws and 1 defeat, picking up a total of 6 points during that spell. For comparison, Sheffield United picked up 13 points in that spell, and Burnley picked up 13 points as well, which means that the run-in for Leeds United is now increasingly pressurised due to the recent performances. Some of Farke's decisions have been called into question in recent weeks. The playing Manor Solomon against Swansea on Saturday, despite the fact that he had played 90 minutes in internationals for Israel when Largi Ramazani was fit, available and had been training at Thorpe Arch during that time. Also pushing Ethan Ampadu back into the squad after 8 weeks out and no match time at all proved to be a mistake in that game, as well then as the persistence with goalkeeper Ilan Meli and the issues that he's had this season as well. The manner of which Leeds finished the season is labelled as the main reason why a change would happen, or the type of change that would happen. And Graham Bailey has been speaking on the topic, and he said the following: I wouldn't rule out a conversation of an exit. The 49ers use Red Bull. Red Bull know what they're doing. If Leeds go top 2, I don't see them changing, but never say never. With Red Bull's contacts and the club Leeds' size, I think people underestimate the pull that Leeds have. I don't see them doing it with the pull that Leeds have, but last day scrapping it wouldn't surprise me. He's not as secure as Chris Wilder. He's secure, however, if they go up automatically. He'd be on a short leash next season. He'd be sacked by November or December if they made a bad start. Obviously, any talk of a managerial change at this point of the season is premature. Leeds are still currently sitting in second place, and nothing will likely happen until the summer. Farke's comments after the game of being 100% convinced that Leeds will play in the Premier League next season, even if it's not through the automatics, didn't land the way that he expected it to land. The comment of even if it's not through the automatics worried a lot of fan base and made us think that the manager is already looking at the playoffs as a route back to the Premier League, and we saw what happened last season with that. I don't think any fan is keen on doing that again. Also should be pointed out that Darren from the Only Leeds Bros shared some information today as well. He stayed back in the stadium until it was empty after the Swansea game, and Prag Morate was seen sitting in the director's area, head in hands, looking visibly upset and frustrated with the situation that unfolded in that game. So what kind of conversations are happening behind the scenes, especially the fact that Daniel Farke was offered a new goalkeeper after the whole game and decided not to take up that option and stick with Ilan Melier. So Yeah, a lot of talk going on. There's a lot of stuff there. I suppose the manner, as it says in the report, the manner of how Leeds get promoted or don't get promoted will ultimately lead to the decision on Daniel Farke's future at the club. But there is far more pressure on now than there was, say, 6 weeks ago. Let's move on. Let's talk about a potential transfer. And as with all transfers at this stage of the season, I'm not trying to wind anybody up, but just to give you the information, I would take these with a pinch of salt. Obviously, Leeds' divisional status will come into play here, as well as a lot of other factors as well. So just take it with a pinch of salt. But there is one transfer story today that has a little bit more meat on the bones and may have some more credibility than others that have been rumoured in previous weeks. On the player linked with Leeds, German international Julian Weigl, a player that Daniel Farke signed at Borussia Mönchengladbach and who he favoured and played him at every available minute that he could play. Similar to what he's done with Ethan Ampadu, similar to what he did with Emi Buendia at Norwich. But speaking to German outlet Transfermarkt, Farke was asked about a reunion with Weigl, and he left the door a little bit open for this one, saying the following: Julian is a great footballer and a great person. He could enrich many teams with his qualities. However, my focus at this stage of the season is entirely on our current squad and getting the best out of the team. Weigl and Nico Elvedi, two players that Farke managed at Borussia Mönchengladbach, have both been continuously linked with a move to Leeds United. Elvedi was linked with Leeds during the summer, but the transfer at that point was said to be one that could potentially happen in the summer should Leeds get promoted. There is interest in Elvedi, but there is also talk that Elvedi would be interested in coming to Leeds United and a reunion with Daniel Farke, but only if Leeds were to get to the Premier League. And we move on to the final story of the day today, and this one is around Leeds financials. And Leeds United have finally published their accounts for the first season back in the Championship last year, and as expected there are significant losses and increases across the board published in these reports. Leeds revenue went down by a very large 33%, although wage drops due to relegation and relegation release clauses for the loan players of the mass exits that we saw help balance out things a little bit. But Leeds' overall losses before tax went up by 80%. The drop in the EFL and losing out on the Premier League's TV money are massive factors in this drop, but the 80% losses represents £61 million before tax. Leeds still owe significant portion of money to previous transfers from the Premier League time due to the amortisation policy at the club, and most clubs, to be fair, and that has to be taken into consideration. But as mentioned yesterday's news, the transfer of Archie Gray is the last one included in that set of results. So the transfers of any transfer after the Archie Gray 30th of June date won't be included in that. So that's Gio Rutter, Glenn Kamara, Creech Somerville, and a few others as well that are in that mix as well. They will be included in next year's financials, which hopefully by that stage Leeds United are a Premier League club and we don't have to worry too much about that. But there is a lot of road to travel between now and then. Still 7 games left in the season. We've got to get ready for the Luton Town game. Leeds will need to go and win a couple of games away from home now, after the plan of winning all 4 home games and drawing away is now off the table. There's a lot of work to be done. There's no, at the time of recording, there's no Daniel Farke press conference scheduled for today, which is unusual. Maybe it's tomorrow morning. Right now it's not scheduled on the YouTube channel, so I can't see that, but it would be an interesting press conference, and we hope that some harder hitting questions are asked by the local media when they get in there as well, and find out Daniel Farke's thoughts, not just on the players that are in the side and the international break being used as an excuse last week, the fact that he had players that were available and had been training during that international break and weren't used from the start as well. There's a lot of pressure on with poor little Willie Nonto, who will have the weight of the fan base on his shoulders, and everyone wants to see him in the starting lineup going into weekend's games. So we'll keep an eye on that one, folks. Massive thanks as always for supporting the channel and watching yesterday's video. Apologies about the condition of that video. My laptop took a whack going through the airport and I couldn't use it, so had to wait till I got home today to fix it. So that's the situation. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk to you later on tomorrow. We'll talk to you in the morning and then later on tomorrow evening for the podcast. Enjoy the rest of your day. Talk to you soon. See you. Bye.